So everyone is raving about mirrorless. Nikon have completely changed to mirrorless. They're not making any more DSLRs, well, not making any more new DSLRs. I'm sure Canon and etc. are doing the same. Everyone's going in that direction. I've gone in that direction too. So this year for my weddings, back 6 months ago in January, I had the Z5 anyway from the previous year, and I swapped my D780 for the Z6ii. Completely mirrorless. Still got the D500, but didn't use that for weddings at all. Problems. And this video is about the problems of using mirrorless cameras, certainly for me as a wedding photographer, and why possibly this D500 is going to replace one of those cameras, possibly even both of those cameras. Let me explain. This video is in two parts. There's today, where I'm going to give you some background, introduction and so on, and then I've got a wedding tomorrow, and after that, so Sunday, I will do a second part, which will be my findings, my thoughts and the conclusion about moving back from mirrorless back to a DSLR for lots of parts of weddings. Possibly even becoming my main camera again. I'm sure I'm no different to most other people. When I switched to mirrorless, I thought that the new technology, all the new features would help me get better photos. And in some ways they do. But I haven't yet ever found a perfect camera, and those mirrorless cameras are a long way from perfect. As I say, they do have certain features which for weddings do make them better than a DSLR, but they also have some downsides. Let me talk about those. Firstly, and the biggest one, the one that's really been bugging me, it didn't bug me to begin with, but it really bugs me now, is the fact they're slow. Combined with battery life. I'll explain. To conserve battery life, I normally have the back screen turned off. However, to try and get the thing to actually be responsive. So what I'm talking about is I've got two cameras on me at a wedding. I pick one up, I do some shots with it, and then a few minutes later, I want the other lens. So I've got 58 on here, say, and I want the 24 lens on that one. So I put this one down, pick that one up, which I now haven't used for a few minutes, and it's dead. It's gone to sleep. And I've changed that from being, I think, 30 seconds to 5 minutes, which, when combined with the fact the rear screen is turned off, seems to sort of equal out regarding battery life. But it's still way too often. It's dead, and I have pressed the shutter, half pressed the shutter, and I sit and I wait. Ah, it's working again. And that lag, certainly at a wedding, and for many other things as well, certainly sports and action or anything like that, is an absolute killer. And I now find, over the last few weddings, I found that to be a real issue. I pick the thing up, there's a lovely shot in front of me, and by the time the camera's working, gone, vanished, finished, missed it. Whereas this, it goes to sleep, but I pick it up and I touch the shutter like that, and it's instantly ready to shoot. So that would overcome one, it sounds a very minor thing, a bit petty even, but it really is beginning to bug me. And yeah, there's certain other things. And I won't go through the whole list, but focus. Yeah, we've got face and eye autofocus. We've got loads of more focus modes and areas, so on, than a DSLR. And most of the time I manage to get focus okay. When I look through my, shots in Lightroom, I don't have that many shots that are out of focus. But without blowing my own trumpet, that's because I've spent a lot of time practicing and perfecting how to use the focus options to get the best results. And I like to think I do that very well, but it's still hard work. And again, quite often I want a shot and I'm in the wrong focus mode, and even though I've set the camera up so I just press one button, scroll the dial, I can change focus modes very quickly, it still doesn't do what I want it to do all the time. Tracking is abysmal. Well, 3D tracking is abysmal. You've got the box, so if you're in wide area, you can hit the button and get the little tracking box up in the middle, which would be ideal. If I could just get that up every time, put that over the bride, the groom, the best man, whoever, the kids playing and having a laugh, and then compose and shoot, that'd be brilliant. They're not even moving. I just want to be able to put that box over what I want to focus on, compose and shoot. Doesn't even do that some of the time, and if it doesn't do it some of the time, then I can't use it because I'm going to miss the shot. So most of the time I'm actually using D9, moving the focus point around the screen, focusing and shooting. That is really the only one that I can be 100% sure that I'm going to get the shot. So we're back to the same focusing mode that I've used on my DSLRs for the last 10 years. So recently I've been considering going back to a DSLR, at least as a second camera, so that when I get a shot that's absolutely must get this shot now, in the next second, I can grab that camera and know that I'm going to get the shot. Problem. In the past, last year I used the D780. Lovely camera. I'd say the best DSLR I've had. The problem with that camera that made it less than perfect was the quite small AF area in the centre of the screen. And again, the tracking was okay, but it certainly wasn't up to kind of D5 or D6 sort of sports and action type 3D tracking. So again, I was stuck with using D9 most of the time, so you've got to move it around. And the D780 didn't have a joystick, so you've got to use the pad, move it around, and it's all, again, it's a bit slow. So it certainly wasn't perfect. So I looked at the D780, which suffers from exactly the same problem. It's got a small focus area, middle of the screen, and I do love the fact that on mirrorless cameras I can focus all around the screen. I don't really want to miss that. And then purely by chance, I was talking to another photographer. We were out, it's someone I know and occasionally meet up and take a few photos and have a coffee, and he uses a D500. And he has his D500, and I managed to twist his arm and let me borrow that for a trip down to London to see my daughter, just for a day. So I borrowed that and I stuck my 35 1.4 Sigma lens on it, so it's equivalent to like 50mm lens, and we walked around London and I took some shots with that. And I was blown away by the image quality. I didn't expect to be. It's only a 21 megapixel camera, crop sensor, admittedly with a really good lens on it, but the images I got from it were absolutely probably better than I'd got from my D780 last year. The detail, the contrast, the colours, everything was just superb, and I loved using it. And the thing I loved most was the AF area. First of all, it's 151 points, same as the D5. And because it's crop sensor, that focus area covers the entire screen. And I used the tracking to do some action shots of my two grandchildren, the two littlies, playing in a park there. And I don't think it missed a single shot, even though the focus, the little point that sort of follows the subject around the screen, that seemed to be, you know, a few tenths of a second behind sometimes, but it didn't seem to matter. It still actually was nailing the focus on that shot, and I was really impressed. So I looked more at the D500, and I've never looked at a crop sensor camera in the past. I've always been a full frame guy. I haven't had a crop sensor camera for 12 or 15 years, and I've always thought they're a bit unprofessional. But when I saw these images from this D500, I had to instantly change my view. So I started wondering if the D500, with its AF area that covered the entire screen, the really good AF and tracking, combined with a wonderful optical viewfinder, and the fact it's fast, it's instant, it's reactive, it responds to exactly what I want it to do when I want it to do it, not half a second later, and so on. So the plan is, tomorrow's wedding, I bought a D500. A little story, let me digress. I bought this from MPB here in the UK. They had about 25 of these listed. Sorry, it's gone dark, the sun's just gone in and my camera hasn't changed. Yeah, and ranging from around about, top price was about nearly £1,300 down to about 840, I think. And of course the £840 ones have got, you know, nearly 200,000 shutter count, been heavily used, lots of wear, lots of dents, scratches, got all the paint worn off on the corners and the paint come off on the buttons and that kind of thing. However, I'm going through all these and I see one, and it was almost the very last one listed, so it was £840, and it said shutter count 17,000, which stood out because every other camera at the bottom of the range there is well over 100,000, and it says heavily used. Strange for only 17,000 shots. So looked at the photos, and MPB are really good because they actually show you the photos of what you're going to buy, and I couldn't see a mark on it. I couldn't see any paint rubbed off. The buttons have got all their paint. Just didn't seem to be anything wrong with it. So I bought that camera, and that's what we've got here. And I think they made a mistake because the shutter count is actually only 15,000, and literally, I mean, all the paint is on the corners. There's nothing rubbed off. The covers here have got a couple of scratches, like you've got your thumbnail and you just scrape that across and it's got, you know, a mark on it. I've almost marked it again. So it's as light as that. The screens are completely unmarked. Rubbers are perfect. And it was the cheapest one I could buy. So I'm hoping I've got a bargain. So I've popped my 35 1.4 Sigma lens on this, and my plan, possibly, and I'm testing the idea out, as I say, tomorrow at the wedding, and I'll be back to tell you how that all worked out, is Sigma, many years ago actually, launched a DX, so a crop sensor lens, a zoom lens, 18 to 35, 1.8. Now I've never, sorry, let me rephrase that. For the last 2 years, maybe 3, I haven't used zoom lenses. I took a decision back then to change to prime lenses because I discovered that the quality of photos I get from prime lenses is just another planet, another continent anyway, different to a zoom lens. Even the best zoom lenses, the Nikon F2470 2.8, the latest one, even that cannot match a 51.8 prime lens, and it certainly can't match the prime lenses that I'm using here. So I've shot with prime lenses, which is why I have 2 cameras, because I need to keep changing focal lengths. And also, of course, 1.4, 1.8 is the standard for prime lenses, and it matters, it makes a difference. So I always shoot, no, I mostly shoot at wide open, apart from the 58 1.4, which is, I have to confess, quite soft at 1.4, so I normally shoot that around about 1.8 or 2. Everything else is either 1.8 or 1.4. Sigma, as I say, many years ago launched an 18 to 35 1.8 zoom lens, constant 1.8. Now 18 to 35 is full frame equivalent, 24 to 52. Now bear in mind that all of my wedding shots, apart from maybe 10, are either at 50mm, 35mm or 24mm. So if I've got one lens that covers 24, 35 and 50, 52, I only need one lens, and it's 1.8. I don't need any other lenses. So what I'm possibly wondering is, can I use a D500 to shoot practically all of the shots at a wedding with the 18-35 1.8 zoom lens and simply choose the focal length I want, because I know that everything I normally shoot is covered by that zoom lens, and just use this one camera rather than two. So that is the experiment. And of course I shall be back in 2 days time, not with a new video. I'll just add it on in a moment to this video, and we'll see how that idea works out. I haven't bought zoom lens yet because that's another nearly £500, but if I have success with this camera tomorrow at the wedding, if I like it and I decide that the camera is something that I would want to use for future weddings instead of mirrorless, then I will be buying the zoom lens, and then I'll do another video after that, of course, to update you on that. Right, been waffling a bit. We'll be back in 1 second for you, in 2 days for me. So 1 second later, and actually 3 days, because I've waited an extra day, because I've actually bought the zoom lens I was talking about. But I haven't really, that only arrived today, so obviously I've got to wait till the next wedding to really test that out. And I'm sorry if the light's going up and down. I'm sitting here in the vest. It's actually the hottest day on record here in the UK. It's 1 o'clock and we've already broken all the temperature records, so it's a bit warm. In fact, I read somewhere that the UK might be the hottest place on the planet today. Anyway, so how did I get on with the D500 at the wedding on Saturday? Did it do what I wanted it to do? And let's just quickly recap. What I wanted it to do was to be quick. I could pick it up and shoot, and I wouldn't have to, well, focus and shoot. And that was one of my main criteria. Yes, it is noticeably better in that aspect than a mirrorless camera. Was it easier to use? Was it easier? Was it a more pleasant experience? For me, maybe it's a novelty because I haven't used a DSLR for 5 months or so, apart from my D700, which I don't use actually at weddings, but at a wedding, maybe it's a bit of novelty value there, but it was a real pleasure to use because it does what you want it to do. Focusing. I found myself using mostly 3D tracking, not because I'm photographing action and sports and need to track people, but because I can just put that, and I can actually, and not sure if I could do this on the D7ii in my previous DSLRs, you can move the actual 3D tracking point. I think, I haven't got the D7ii now, so I can't check. I think it was always stuck in the middle. So you put that over your subject, hit the back button focus, and then you could recompose and it would move around the very small focus area, the very small AF area, to track, and so you could get a composition. Of course, with this, you can move the 3D tracking box to wherever you want to within the AF area, which covers not the entire screen, the entire width, and about 3/4 of the height. And if you turn it into portrait mode, you can have a different position for that tracking box. So it was almost like single point AF, where you can fix the positions that you use most of the time. So I would use 3D tracking, box would be in roughly the right place. So yeah, sorry, I got interrupted with the phone. So that 3D tracking box is in pretty much the right place. Hit back button focus and just recompose slightly and shoot. And it is so quick. It's absolutely spot on. Well, it looked like it was spot on, but of course it's not back until you get back in Lightroom and have a look through all the photos in detail that you can see whether or not you actually nailed focus. Exposure. I did change from spot metering to matrix maybe it was just the day. The photos are behind me there. It was an incredibly bright sunny day. They got married, the actual ceremony, they were in shade. The wedding party was out in the bright sun, and I found that if I only had to move the camera a tiny bit, and it would completely change the exposure. So I went for matrix metering. I actually left it on matrix metering for the rest of the day, and it seems to have done just as good a job as a mirrorless camera or any other DSLR. So exposure was not a problem. Battery life, I think it was about 600 shots with the D500. There was still some battery life left in it. I would guess I probably had another 150, 200 shots. The Z6ii, which I used as my other camera, I got through. I had to change the battery, so it was around about the speeches. So about 3/4 of the way through the day, I think I probably got about 400 shots. Number of shots each, I took about almost the same number of shots. I got 600 with this, 600 with the mirrorless. And yeah, I loved using it. I can see no downside to using this compared to a mirrorless. I haven't got face and eye autofocus. I'm actually going to experiment with that, because wide area AF, or ultra area AF, whatever it's called on a DSLR, and the face detect algorithms in the DSLR, the D500, seem to pick up faces really, really well. Now, unlike a mirrorless, it doesn't put a little box around the face or a little box on the eye, but from a few tests I've done, it is very good at focusing on faces. Whether or not it's good enough to actually rely on 100%, I will find out, but it looks like it might be. So I've now got the zoom lens. So in 3 days time, on Friday, I've got a wedding. I will be using this guy with the zoom lens, and I've taken a few shots with the Sigma 1.8 18-35, and it seems every bit as sharp as the Sigma 1.4 35mm lens is, and it's beautiful to use. The images look, what can I say? They look wonderful. I'm talking, and bear in mind, I'm talking about weddings. I'm not photographing architecture. I'm not photographing landscapes, birds in flight, anything like that. I'm talking weddings, which is, I guess you would almost call general purpose. There's a bit of everything, isn't there? There's sort of product photography of the rings and the perfume and all that kind of stuff. There's a little bit of architecture, maybe photographing the venue and the settings of the venue and the rooms and that kind of thing. So, you know, it's a mishmash of everything. So what I'm going to do is take this with me on Friday with the, well, both Z cameras, but I shall use the Z6ii as my second camera. And we'll see how the D500 with that zoom lens work out. It might be something that you would like to consider for yourself. Don't be like me and think crop sensor no good, DSLR old technology. That is just not the case. And I think maybe this has got a place in certainly my camera bag for many years to come. We'll see. I'll be back in a few days and I'll give you an update on that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm off to have a very big cold drink.